Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Harmony and watched the stars through the big window. He had been traveling through space for 15 years, but he still loved seeing new places. Today was different, though. Today, they would meet aliens for the first time. "Captain, we are getting a signal," said Lieutenant Amy Clark from her station. "It is not like anything we have seen before." Jake walked over to look at her screen. Strange patterns of light were dancing across it. The patterns looked almost like music, but made of colors instead of sounds. "Can you understand it?" he asked. "I think they are trying to talk to us," Amy said. "But they use light and color instead of words." Dr. Lisa Parker came onto the bridge. She was Earth's best scientist for studying new life forms. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "Captain, this is amazing. Look at these patterns. They are so beautiful and complex. These aliens must be very smart." Jake nodded. "Can we talk back to them?" "I think so," Lisa said. "Give me a few minutes." She worked quickly at her computer. Soon she had created a simple pattern of lights that meant hello and friend. They sent the message and waited. The alien ship was still far away, but they could see it on their screens. It looked like a giant crystal that sparkled with its own light. Nothing like the metal ships humans built. "Captain," they answered, Amy said with wonder in her voice. They sent back the same pattern, but with more colors added to it. "What do the new colors mean?" Jake asked. Lisa studied her screen. "I think they mean welcome and peaceful." "Captain, I believe they are friendly." Over the next few hours, the two ships moved closer to each other. The humans and aliens kept sending light patterns back and forth. Soon they had created a simple way to talk to each other. The alien ship was beautiful up close. It looked like it was made from living crystal that changed colors as they watched. When the aliens finally spoke to them in words, their voices sounded like music. "We are the Ketalari," the alien leader said. His name was Veth Ka. "We come from the star you call Vega. We have been watching your people for many years. You interest us." "Why do we interest you?" Jake asked. "Because you explore and learn, but you do not destroy," Veth Ka replied. "Most species we have met try to take everything for themselves. You are different. You help each other and share what you find." Dr. Parker leaned forward. "We would love to learn from you too. Your ship is amazing. How does it work?" Veth Ka made a sound like laughing bells. "We will show you, if you wish to be our friends. We have much to share." The meeting was the beginning of something wonderful. The Ketalari came to Earth and humans went to visit their worlds. The Ketalari were everything they seemed to be. They were peaceful, kind, and loved to create beautiful things. Their cities were made of crystal that sang in the wind. Their art could make people cry with joy just by looking at it. Dr. Parker spent months working with Ketalari scientists. They taught her how to grow medicine from crystal formations. The medicine could heal injuries that human doctors thought were impossible to fix. In return, she showed them how humans solved problems by working together and never giving up. Commander Alex Chen was in charge of keeping everyone safe. He worked with the Ketalari to create protection agreements between their peoples. The Ketalari had technology that could defend planets without hurting anyone. Humans had knowledge about fighting that could help the Ketalari protect themselves. "Your people are warriors, but you fight to protect, not to conquer," Veth Ka told Alex one day. "This is rare in the galaxy." "What do you mean?" Alex asked. Veth Ka's crystal skin dimmed a little. "There are others in the dark between stars, others who take and destroy. We have been running from them for a long time. But now, with friends like you, perhaps we can finally stop running." The Ketalari would not say much about these others. They only called them the consuming dark, and said they destroyed everything beautiful in the galaxy. But with humans as friends, the Ketalari felt brave enough to build new homes instead of always moving. The friendship between humans and Ketalari grew stronger every day. They built a research station together on Titan, one of the moons around the planet Saturn. Human engineers and Ketalari artists worked side by side, creating things neither could make alone. Captain Morrison often visited the station. He loved watching humans and Katalari work together. The aliens had taught humans how to make tools using thought and feeling, instead of just metal and electricity. Humans had taught the Katalari how to build things that would last even in the harshest places. The best moment came when both peoples signed the Titan Accords. It was an agreement that made them true partners and friends. President Maria Santos watched from Earth through a video link. She had tears in her eyes as she spoke. "Today, humanity is no longer alone in the universe," she said. "We have found friends among the stars. We promise to stand together, to learn together, and to protect each other." The Katalari performed a special ceremony to celebrate. All their crystal cities on different worlds began to sing at the same time. The sound traveled through space and reached Earth, where people stopped what they were doing just to listen to the beautiful music. Vethka stood next to Captain Morrison as they watched the ceremony. "Your people have given us something we thought we had lost forever," he said. "What is that?" Jake asked. "Hope," Vethka replied. "For the first time in centuries, we believe the galaxy can be a place of friendship instead of fear." Jake smiled and put his hand on his friend's crystal shoulder. Neither of them knew that their happiness would not last long. Neither of them knew that the consuming dark was already moving toward them, bringing death and sorrow to destroy the beautiful friendship they had built. For now, humans and Katalari celebrated together under the stars, believing that friendship could conquer anything. 6 months after the celebration on Titan, Lieutenant Amy Clark was working the night shift on Earth's deep space monitoring station. She loved the quiet hours when she could listen to signals from distant stars. Most nights brought only the usual sounds of space, radiation from old stars, and the hum of cosmic dust. But tonight was different. Amy noticed something strange on her screens. Huge energy readings were coming from the edge of the galaxy, moving fast toward their part of space. The readings were bigger than anything she had ever seen. "Captain Morrison, you need to see this." Amy called over the communication system. Even though Jake was sleeping on his ship 3 hours away, she knew this could not wait. Jake arrived at the monitoring station within an hour, still putting on his uniform. "What do we have, Lieutenant?" Amy pointed at her screens. "Sir, these readings started showing up 2 hours ago. Whatever is making them is massive. I count at least 3,000 separate objects all moving together." Jake studied the numbers. His face went pale. 3,000? Are you sure these readings are correct? "I checked them 5 times, sir." "And Captain, they are all heading straight for us." Dr. Lisa Parker rushed into the station, followed by Commander Alex Chen. Both had been woken up by emergency calls. Lisa looked at the screens and felt her stomach drop. These energy signatures are not natural. They are from ships, very large ships. Alex was already on his communication device, calling Admiral Susan Wright on Earth. "Admiral, we have a situation. We are detecting a massive fleet approaching our space. I recommend we go to high alert immediately." Admiral Wright's voice came through clearly. "How massive, Commander?" "At least 3,000 vessels, ma'am. Much larger than anything we have ever built." There was silence for a moment. Then Admiral Wright spoke again, her voice tight with worry. "I am calling an emergency meeting of all fleet commanders. We need to know what we are dealing with." The answer came sooner than anyone expected. As the human ships scrambled to get into defensive positions, a message arrived. It was broadcast on all frequencies at the same time, reaching Earth and the Katalari worlds in the Vega system. The voice that spoke was cold and harsh, like metal scraping against stone. "Primitive species of these systems, you will listen and obey. We are the Zephyrian hegemony. We have conquered 47 star systems. You are next." Admiral Wright was in the command center on Earth when the message played. Around her, officers stopped what they were doing to listen. The alien voice continued, "I am Cosmore, war leader of the hegemony fleet. You have 3 of your days to decide. Surrender all your technology and submit to hegemony rule, or face cleansing. These are your only choices." The message ended with images that made everyone watching feel sick. They showed planets that had been destroyed, their surfaces turned to glass. They showed the remains of alien cities and the bones of species that had refused to surrender. Colonel Danny Rodriguez, Earth's military intelligence chief, studied the images with growing fear. He had spent his life learning about war and weapons, but he had never seen destruction like this. "Admiral, we need to understand what we are facing. These weapons are beyond anything we have." Admiral Wright nodded grimly. "How many ships do we have ready for combat?" 200, ma'am. But most of them are exploration vessels with basic weapons. We have maybe 50 ships that could fight a real battle. And they have 3,000, the Admiral said quietly. "Contact the Ketelari immediately. We need to coordinate our response." The call to Vethka took several hours to arrange. When his face appeared on the screen, Captain Morrison could see fear in his alien friend's crystal features. It was the first time Jake had ever seen a Ketelari look afraid. "Jake, my friend, we felt their approach through the harmony of space," Vethka said. "The consuming dark has found us at last." "You know who they are?" Morrison asked. "We know them well. The Zephyrian hegemony destroyed our parent worlds 500 years ago. We are all that remains of a once great civilization. They have been hunting us ever since." Dr. Parker leaned into the screen. "Vethka, why didn't you tell us about this before?" The Ketelari scientist's light dimmed with sadness. "Because we hoped they would never find us here. Because we wanted to believe that friendship might be stronger than the darkness that follows us." Commander Chen spoke up. "How do we fight them? What are their weaknesses?" Vethka was quiet for a long moment. "They have few weaknesses, Alex. Their ships are built only for war. Their weapons can crack planets. Their soldiers feel no mercy and know no fear. This is why we ran instead of fighting." "But you are willing to fight now?" Admiral Wright asked. "Yes," Vethka replied without hesitation. "We will stand with our human friends. Even if we die, we will not run again." The next 3 days were filled with desperate preparation. The Ketelari sent their few remaining ships to join the human fleet. Their vessels were small but equipped with consciousness weapons that could disable enemy crews without killing them. Even facing extinction, the Ketelari refused to build weapons designed to murder. Dr. Parker worked day and night with Ketelari engineers to combine their technologies. They managed to install consciousness amplifiers on 50 human ships. The hybrid weapons were untested, but they were the only advantage the Allies had. Commander Chen studied intelligence reports about hegemony tactics. The enemy always attacked in overwhelming force, using fear as much as firepower. They would strike the weakest targets first, destroying them completely to break the spirit of any resistance. "They will hit the research station on Titan first," Chen told the War Council. "It is isolated and defended by only a few ships. They want to show us what happens to those who defy them." Captain Morrison volunteered to take his ship Harmony to help defend Titan. 6 Ketelari vessels agreed to go with him. It was a small force, but it was all they could spare while still protecting Earth and the Ketelari homeworld. As Morrison's ships took position around Titan, long-range sensors detected the approach of 30 massive hegemony destroyers. The alien ships were black as space itself, covered with weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "This is Captain Morrison to all ships," Jake said over the communication system. "Remember, we are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for friendship. We are fighting to prove that peace and cooperation are stronger than conquest and destruction." The Ketelari captain Yelatos responded from her crystal ship. "We stand with you, friend Jake. If we must die, we die protecting what we love." As the hegemony fleet drew closer, Morrison looked out at the research station where humans and Ketelari had worked together to build something beautiful. Soon, that beauty would be tested by the harsh reality of war. The battle for Titan was about to begin, and everyone knew that the galaxy would never be the same when it was over. The battle for Titan began without warning. Captain Jake Morrison was looking at the research station through his ship's window when the space around him suddenly filled with fire and death. 30 black hegemony destroyers dropped out of faster than light travel and immediately started shooting. "All ships, defensive positions," Morrison shouted into his communication system. But even as he gave the order, He knew they were badly outnumbered. 7 small ships against 30 massive destroyers was not a fight they could win. The Ketelari ships moved like dancers, their crystal hulls flashing with beautiful colors as they activated their consciousness weapons. Captain Yelatos spoke, calmly over the radio even as enemy fire exploded around her ship. "Human friends, we will try to disable their crews. Our weapons can make them sleep without harming them." Morrison watched in amazement as beams of soft light reached out from the Ketelari ships toward the enemy destroyers. Where the light touched, the hegemony ships slowed down and stopped firing. For a moment, he thought they might actually win, but Cosmore had not conquered 47 star systems by being unprepared. The hegemony ships activated shields that blocked the consciousness weapons. Their own guns turned toward the Ketelari vessels with deadly purpose. "Yelatos, get out of there," Morrison yelled, but it was too late. The first Ketelari ship died in a ball of white fire. The beautiful crystal hull that had sung with harmony for centuries was turned to dust in seconds. Morrison felt something break inside his chest as he watched his friend disappear. Lieutenant Amy Clark was at her station on the Harmony, trying to coordinate their defense. "Captain, the hybrid weapons are not working. The consciousness amplifiers cannot get through their shields." Morrison gritted his teeth and ordered his ship to attack with conventional weapons. The Harmony's missiles struck one of the smaller hegemony destroyers, damaging its engines, but for every hit the human ship scored, they lost ground. Another Ketelari ship exploded, then another. The alien vessels were fast and graceful, but they were not built for this kind of brutal combat. Their weapons were designed to disable, not destroy. Their hulls were made for beauty, not war. "Please," Yelatos called over the radio. Her ship was badly damaged, its crystal surface cracked and bleeding light. "We do not wish to kill you. Surrender, and we will spare your lives." The answer came in the form of concentrated fire from 5 hegemony destroyers. Yelatos's ship tried to dodge, but it was too slow. Morrison watched helplessly as another friend turned into expanding gas and debris. Dr. Lisa Parker was on the research station, watching the battle through the observation deck windows. Around her, human and Ketelari scientists worked desperately to evacuate the most important research data. But they all knew there was not enough time. "The defense grid is failing," reported one of the technicians. "The station shields cannot take much more of this." Lisa looked out at the battle and saw that only 2 Ketelari ships were still alive. The Harmony and 4 other human vessels were fighting desperately, but they were taking heavy damage. It was clear that everyone was going to die. Commander Alex Chen's voice came over the station's communication system from his ship, the Guardian. "All stations prepare for evacuation. We cannot hold them much longer." But even as he spoke, 3 more hegemony destroyers targeted his ship. The Guardian was tough, built for combat, but it could not survive that much firepower. Alex's last words over the radio were calm and steady. "Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them the Ketelari died as heroes. Tell them to remember our friends." The Guardian exploded in a flash that lit up the dark side of Titan. Morrison felt tears on his face as he watched another good person die for nothing more than the hegemony's desire to conquer. 1 Ketelari ship remained. Its captain, an artist named Velaketh, continued to broadcast pleas for peace even as enemy fire tore apart her vessel's crystal wings. "We have never hurt anyone," she said, her musical voice full of pain. "We create beauty. We share knowledge. Why do you destroy us?" Cosmore's harsh voice answered over all frequencies. "Because you exist, and we do not permit others to exist without our permission. Your beauty means nothing. Your peace means nothing. Only strength matters." Velaketh's ship died slowly, its crystal hull cracking piece by piece. As it broke apart, Morrison could hear the death song it sang. It was the most heartbreaking sound he had ever heard. The music spoke of all the art that would never be created, all the wisdom that would be lost, all the friendship that was ending, in fire and darkness. The research station was next. The hegemony destroyers surrounded it like predators around wounded prey. Morrison tried to get closer to help, but his ship was too badly damaged. The Harmony's engines were failing and half his weapons were destroyed. Dr. Parker and the other scientists on the station made a final broadcast to Earth and the Ketelari homeworld. "This is Titan Research Station. We are about to be destroyed. The knowledge we gained here, the friendship we built, must not be forgotten. Remember what we tried to build together. Remember that it was beautiful." The station died in silence. One moment it was there, full of the hopes and dreams of two species working together. The next moment it was gone, reduced to scrap metal, floating in space. Morrison found himself alone, his ship barely functioning, surrounded by 30 enemy destroyers. His crew was dead or dying. His friends were gone. The beautiful crystal ships that had brought such joy were now nothing but glowing debris. "Surrender, human," Cosmore's voice commanded. "Your resistance is over." But Morrison was not thinking about surrender. He was thinking about Vethka back on the Ketelari homeworld, and what would happen when the hegemony fleet reached him. He was thinking about Earth, and all the people who did not yet know that their first alien friends had been murdered. "No," Morrison said quietly. Then louder, broadcasting on all frequencies. "No, we do not surrender to murderers." He activated his ship's emergency faster than light drive. The Harmony jumped away from Titan just as the hegemony ships opened fire on where it had been. Morrison escaped, but he carried with him the memory of everything that had died. As his damaged ship limped toward Earth, Morrison received the worst news of all. Long-range sensors showed that the main hegemony fleet was moving toward Vethara, the Ketelari homeworld. 3,000 warships against a peaceful planet that had never known war. Morrison tried to warn them, but he was too far away. He could only watch through his sensors as the fleet that had just destroyed Titan set course for the complete extinction of the Ketelari species. The massacre had only begun. Captain Jake Morrison's damaged ship reached Earth 3 days after the massacre at Titan. He brought with him the worst news in human history. As his ship landed at the main spaceport, crowds of people gathered. They had heard fragments of news from the battle, but they did not know how bad it really was. Morrison walked off his ship carrying a small crystal in his hands. It was all that remained of his friend Velaketh's ship. The crystal still glowed faintly with the music of the Ketelari death song. His face was pale and his eyes were red from crying. Admiral Susan Wright met him at the landing pad. She took one look at his face and knew that everything had changed. "Captain, report," she said quietly. "They are all dead, Admiral," Morrison said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Every single Ketelari at Titan. The research station is gone. Commander, Chen is gone. They killed them all, and they did it for fun." The Admiral felt her heart break. "What about the homeworld? What about Vethara?" Morrison closed his eyes, and the crystal in his hands pulsed with sad light. "The fleet is moving there now. 3,000 ships against a planet that has never known war. Admiral, we are about to watch an entire species die." The news spread across Earth like wildfire. Within hours, every human on the planet knew that their first alien friends were being murdered. The streets filled with people holding candles and crystals, singing the Ketelari songs they had learned during the years of friendship. President Maria Santos called an emergency session of the United Earth Assembly. When she spoke to the representatives, tears ran down her face. "They destroyed our friends," she said, her voice shaking with grief and anger. "They silenced the most beautiful voices in the galaxy. They will answer for this." The assembly hall erupted in shouts of agreement. Representatives who had spent years arguing about small problems now stood united in their fury. Humanity had found something they all agreed on. The Ketelari had been their friends, and friends must be avenged. General Pete Morgan was put in charge of the war effort. He was Earth's best military commander, a man who had spent his life studying how to win battles. But as he looked at the reports from Titan, even he felt overwhelmed. "We are facing an enemy that has conquered 47 star systems," he told his staff officers. "They have weapons we have never seen, and ships bigger than our cities. But they made one mistake. They hurt our friends, and humans do not forgive." That Dr. Lisa Parker had changed since Titan. The gentle scientist who had spent her time learning about alien life was gone. In her place was a woman filled with cold anger. She took over the project to weaponize every piece of Ketelari technology they had learned. The Ketelari would not approve of what I'm about to do, she told her research team. They believed in peace and mercy. But they are dead and we are not. We will use their own technology to make sure their murderers pay. Working day and night, Lisa's team created weapons that the peaceful Ketelari had never imagined. They took the consciousness technology that was meant to heal and communicate and turned it into something that could drive enemy minds insane with grief and terror. Engineer Sam Foster led the team that built the Harmony Protocol. It was a weapon that could broadcast the emotions of dying Ketelari directly into enemy brains. Anyone hit by it would feel exactly what Vela Keth had felt as her ship was destroyed. The pain would be so great that most enemies would go mad or die from the experience. The Ketelari died feeling betrayed and heartbroken, Sam explained to General Morgan. They could not understand why anyone would destroy beauty and friendship. Now their killers will understand exactly how that feels. Commander Alex Chen had died at Titan, but his replacement, Commander Kate Wilson, continued his work on ship design. She oversaw the retrofit of Earth's entire fleet with humanity's most terrible weapons. Antimatter torpedoes that could crack moons, quantum disruptors that could tear apart matter at the atomic level, neural cascade bombs that would shut down every brain within 100 kilometers. We are not building a fleet to defend Earth, Wilson told her engineering crews. We are building a fleet to end the hegemony forever. The transformation of humanity was complete when Captain Morrison was promoted to Admiral and given command of Earth's new flagship. The ship was called the Vengeance, and it was built with only one purpose: to make the enemies of humanity suffer. The Vengeance was huge, larger than any ship humans had ever built before. Its hull was black as space itself, but lines of Ketelari crystal ran through it like veins of light. The crystals had been programmed with the memories of every Ketelari who had died. Their songs of death and betrayal would be the last thing the hegemony heard. Morrison stood on the bridge of the Vengeance and looked out at Earth's new war fleet. 200 ships had become 1,000. Each one was armed with weapons designed not just to kill, but to make killing as painful as possible for the enemy. Admiral, Lieutenant Amy Clark said from her station. She had survived Titan and now served as Morrison's communications officer. We are receiving the final transmissions from Vithara. Morrison's hands clenched into fists. For days, long-range sensors had shown them the destruction of the Ketelari homeworld. They had watched helplessly as the hegemony fleet surrounded the planet and began their extermination. The last message from Vethka played on the bridge speakers. Morrison's old friend sounded tired and sad, but not afraid. Jake, my human friend, if you can hear this, know that we do not blame you. You tried to save us. We die knowing that friendship was real, even if it was brief. The transmission ended, with the sound of crystal cities shattering. 6 billion Ketelari, the last of their ancient race, died in 12 hours. Their planet was left as nothing but glowing glass and silence. Morrison turned to his crew. Every human on the bridge had tears in their eyes, but their faces were hard with determination. Listen to me, he said. The Ketelari are gone. Every single one of them. An entire species that brought beauty and wisdom to the galaxy has been wiped out because the hegemony thought it was fun. He walked to the main screen, which showed the location of the hegemony fleet. But the Ketelari left us something. They left us their technology, their knowledge, and their memory. We are going to use all of it to make sure that the creatures who killed our friends never feel joy again. Dr. Parker activated the ship's new weapon systems. The Ketelari crystals throughout the ship began to glow with angry light. Admiral, all systems are ready. The Harmony Protocol is online. Every weapon is charged with the pain of our murdered friends. Morrison nodded grimly. Then let us teach the galaxy what happens when you destroy humanity's friends. Send the message to the hegemony on all frequencies. Amy opened a channel that would reach every hegemony ship in the galaxy. Morrison's voice was calm and cold as he spoke. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of Earth. You destroyed our friends. You murdered 6 billion peaceful beings for the crime of existing. Now you will learn why that was the worst mistake in your species' history. The human fleet began to move. 1,000 ships filled with rage and terrible weapons headed toward hegemony space. They carried with them the grief of an entire species and the promise that the Ketalari would be avenged. Behind them, Earth began to change. Humans who had spent years learning to be peaceful were now learning to be the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. They had been shown what evil looked like, and they would make sure it never won again. The war lasted 3 years, but the outcome was decided in the first battle. Admiral Jake Morrison led the human fleet to the edge of hegemony space, where they found a hegemony patrol of 50 ships. The aliens expected an easy victory against what they thought were primitive humans. They were wrong. The Vengeance appeared first, its black hull gleaming with lines of angry crystal light. The Ketalari technology woven into the ship began to sing the death songs of murdered friends. The sound traveled through space itself, reaching the hegemony ships and driving their crews to madness. "This is Admiral Morrison to all hegemony vessels," Jake broadcast on all frequencies. "You killed our friends. Friends do not get replaced. Friends get avenged." The hegemony commander tried to respond, but his words came out as screams. The Harmony Protocol was flooding his mind with every emotion the Ketalari had felt as they died. He experienced their confusion, their heartbreak, their betrayal. He felt what it was like to be murdered for the crime of being peaceful. Within minutes, half the hegemony ships had stopped fighting. Their crews were either dead from psychological shock or curled up in corners, weeping for crimes they had never understood were crimes. The remaining ships tried to run, but human vessels were faster now, powered by rage and improved Ketalari technology. Dr. Lisa Parker watched the battle from the Vengeance's science station. She felt no joy at the enemy's suffering, only cold satisfaction. "The consciousness plague is working perfectly, Admiral. Their neural networks are turning against them." Morrison nodded grimly. "Good. Make sure some survive to spread the word. I want the entire hegemony to know what is coming for them." The few hegemony ships that escaped carried a terrible message back to their leaders. Humanity was not just fighting to win. They were fighting to make their enemies suffer in ways that no species had ever suffered before. News of the human attacks spread through hegemony space like a disease. Whole fleets began to desert rather than face the terrible weapons that could make warriors weep like children. But Cosmore, the war leader who had destroyed the Ketalari, refused to retreat. "They are just one small species," he told his remaining commanders. "We have conquered 47 star systems. We will not be stopped by grief-mad primitives." But Cosmore had not understood what he was facing. Humanity had spent 3 years perfecting their revenge. They had learned everything about hegemony psychology, culture, and biology. They knew exactly how to break their enemies. The final battle took place above Zephyr Prime, the hegemony capital world. Cosmore had gathered every ship he could find, nearly 2,000 vessels surrounding his homeworld. He expected the humans to try a direct assault that his superior numbers could crush. Instead, Admiral Morrison did something that horrified the galaxy. The human fleet appeared at the edge of the system and began broadcasting. But they were not broadcasting threats or demands. They were broadcasting the recorded final moments of every Ketalari who had died. 6 billion death songs played simultaneously across every frequency. The effect on the hegemony forces was immediate and terrible. Warriors who had never known fear began to understand what their victims had felt. Soldiers who had spent their lives conquering suddenly experienced what it was like to be helpless and afraid. "Stop this," Cosmore screamed over the communications. "We will negotiate. We will surrender." Morrison's voice came back cold and empty. "The Ketalari tried to negotiate. They offered to surrender. You killed them anyway. You said only strength mattered. Let me show you real strength." The Vengeance led the human fleet into battle. The ship's weapons were no longer designed just to destroy. They were designed to make destruction as painful as possible. Hegemony ships died slowly, their crews experiencing every moment of terror that their victims had known. Dr. Parker activated the final protocol from her station. The modified Ketalari technology sent psychic waves across the entire hegemony fleet. It did not kill the enemy crews, but it did something worse. It removed their ability to feel satisfaction, joy, or triumph. They would live, but they would never again be able to enjoy victory or feel pride in conquest. Cosmore's flagship tried to escape, but Commander Kate Wilson's task force was waiting. Her ships surrounded the war leader and forced him to watch, as his entire fleet was systematically destroyed. Not quickly, not mercifully, but slowly and with perfect precision. "You wanted to show the galaxy what happens to those who defy you," Wilson told Cosmore over the communication system. "Now we are showing the galaxy what happens to those who murder our friends." The battle ended with the complete destruction of the hegemony fleet. But Morrison was not finished. He ordered his ships to broadcast one final message to every inhabited world in hegemony space. "This is humanity," his voice echoed across 1,000 planets. "We do not conquer. We do not enslave. But when you murder our friends, we remember everything. The hegemony dies today because they chose to destroy beauty instead of creating it. Let this be a lesson to anyone else who thinks friendship is weakness." The psychological plague that Dr. Parker had created spread across all hegemony worlds. The alien species that had built their entire culture around conquest and victory suddenly found themselves unable to feel any pleasure from those things. Their civilization collapsed not because their cities were destroyed, but because their people lost the will to fight or rule. Within months, the hegemony empire was gone. Their warriors became farmers. Their conquerors became artists. They lived, but they lived with the constant memory of what they had destroyed, and the permanent inability to feel joy from hurting others. Admiral Morrison established the Ketelari Memorial Fleet to patrol the galaxy. The ships were painted with crystal patterns that glowed with soft light, reminding everyone of the friends humanity had lost. Each crew member wore a small crystal pendant that sang quietly with Ketelari music. The fleet's mission was simple: find species that were in danger and protect them. Stop those who would destroy beauty and friendship. Make sure that what happened to the Ketelari never happened again. Years later, Morrison stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Eternal Harmony. The ship was white instead of black, decorated with growing crystal gardens that the surviving Ketelari technology had helped humans create. It was a symbol of life instead of death, of memory instead of revenge. Lieutenant Amy Clark, now promoted to commander, approached him with a message. "Admiral, we have found a species under attack in the Centauri system. They are artists, like the Ketelari were. The attackers are demanding surrender." Morrison looked out at the stars and touched the crystal pendant around his neck. For a moment, he could hear Veth Ka's voice, his first alien friend, speaking of hope and friendship. "Send our response to the attackers," Morrison said quietly. "Tell them this: we are humanity. We remember our friends. We protect those who create beauty, and we ensure that those who would destroy our friends never rejoice again. This is our promise to the stars." The Eternal Harmony and its escort fleet jumped to faster than light speed, carrying with them the songs of the Ketelari and the unbreakable promise that friendship would always be defended. In the end, the Ketelari had not died for nothing. They had taught humanity something precious: that some things are worth fighting for, worth dying for, and worth remembering forever. The galaxy was safer because humans had learned to love their friends and fear their enemies. The crystal pendant around Morrison's neck pulsed once with warm light, as if his murdered friend was telling him that he had done well. Somewhere among the stars, the harmony of friendship continued to sing.